What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Action Network podcast. I'm your host, Chris Raybon, and this is our conference championship weekend betting preview. Today, we're going to build our conference championship six-pack of bets with the help of my co-host, the Prime Minister of Degenerate Nation, Stuckey. Stuck. I know it's kind of a bittersweet week for you with the Ravens going down, but you did hit some nice bets, including that likely anytime touchdown. So how you feeling?
Yeah, it was a good weekend betting. I think my only loss was Ravens first half. They turned it over twice. Can't do that on the road in the playoffs. You got to blame Lamar for that. But bet a live Snover in the Rams game, some Ravens live, some Texans live, and then all my tight ends came through. I had a bunch of Hawkinson stuff. I had Higbee to score, likely overs, Schultz overs. Um, so yeah, it was a good weekend betting. And yeah, it's a shame the Ravens couldn't get it done, but you can't turn it over on the road. And then you had Lamar messed up the first half, and then Andrews messed up the second half. Uh, that fumble, he even had a drop that not a lot of people are talking about in the first
Yeah.
half
Yep. And
before
then
the
they
fumble.
right, and then they fumble the
Um,
next player.
that
Yeah.
led to seven. So yeah, it's unfortunate because the Ravens really, from a box score perspective, dominated that game. I thought Houston was pretty unfortunate. I thought they deserved a better chance, but their special teams really let them down. Refs were pretty bad in that game. I'm curious. I'm actually predicting that the refs are going to stay out of it this week. We'll see. I mean, there was a lot of backlash and a lot of people talking about it, so I'm hoping that they swallow their whistle, which is what I always hope for in big games. Rams Eagles was a great game, and then a lot of these games. I mean, all four winning teams were outgained. Story a lot of these playoff games, turnovers, and that's going to cost you in the playoffs more times than not. I mean, look no further than the Lions, who, I mean, Goff turned into a pumpkin. I got to give credit to the Washington game plan in that, I mean, their defense was bad, and it is bad, but they went more zone, went really zone heavy, and Goff all year has been the number one quarterback against man. And the Lions offense still shredded as they will do every week, but Goff made some really bad mistakes trying to force throws into zone coverage. And that mixed with the Detroit defensive injuries, and Washington was great on offense again. It's pretty remarkable for Washington. You have a rookie quarterback on the road in two straight games, and he's the one who looked more poised and didn't make any mistakes. So overall, it was a good weekend, but who cares? We're on to the next. Got Championship Sunday with a divisional matchup, and then two very familiar matchups. One a divisional, one we've seen quite a few times over the past few seasons.
Yeah, so let's jump right into our conference championship six-pack. 55-51 is the score. So the only four behind. You did pick up another point on me last week.
You had
You
some brutal
lost
the
two by the
playoffs. You're
hook.
brutal luck. You had the
Oh,
Chargers under lost by the hook two
yeah.
weeks ago on the blocked extra point. Uh, and then two more by the hook
And
last
that wasn't
week.
even my most painful. The most painful was I had John Bates, speaking of tight
Yep.
ends, under half a yard,
They
whole
threw it to him
game,
late, 20-yard
nothing.
pass.
Their game's out of reach. All they need to do is run the ball. The one pass play, a 20-yard bomb. I think they just wanted to get everybody a catch that played in the game or something because there was no reason to do that. And then they went back to
I
running.
saw that. Condolences.
Also, to all of our listeners, listen up. If you're watching or listening on your phone and you want to instantly tail any of today's picks, just go to the episode description. We've got links for all those picks. If you click the links on your mobile device, the betting app for that pick will open with the bet slip for that pick. Very convenient and a great way to tail. So just go to the episode description and find the quick slip links and you can tail instantly. Let's start it up with the Commanders at the Eagles. Eagles 6. You can find a 6.5 out there if you're looking at Washington, which I'll talk about in a minute. The total 47.5. That's 3 p.m. Eastern on Fox. And for my first pick of the conference championship week six-pack, I'm going with the Commanders plus 6.5 at the Eagles. So I feel like the general market sentiment at this point is probably okay. The Commanders, nice run. Things are going to kind of go back to normal now, and they'll get blown out by the Eagles. But to me, when I look at this Eagles team, I just see way too many red flags not to take the 6.5 here with Washington. So Philly's been outgained, as you mentioned, in both playoff games. They've been outgained by 4 of the last 5 playoff teams they faced. Pittsburgh was the only one they outgained. But Philadelphia in that Rams game, touchdowns of 78, 62, and 44 on the ground. Outside of that, their other 58 plays gained 166 yards. That's just 2.9 yards per play. So they're living dangerously. You expect them to get, those Saquon plays here and there, but it's just been a very inconsistent offense. Then you look at Jalen Hurts before and after the knee injury. Before he wasn't great, just 3 net yards per attempt, but the Eagles called about 58% pass plays after, and it was still a close game. So, the game script didn't really change, but after the knee injury, just 29.4% pass plays, and he averaged negative -0.2 net yards per attempt. I don't know how healthy he is, but any variance, anything less than 100% works in your favor of the dog here. And then on defense, this Philadelphia team, the one thing they struggled with, 4th downs. They were 24th in the league, allowing 63% during the regular season. We know Washington only missed 3 all regular season. They're one of the best 4th down teams. They go for it almost every time. And then that Nakobe Dean injury, we'll see. We only got a sample size of 1 right now in the playoffs with this current setup, but their net yards per attempt during the regular season, 5.1. Against the Rams, 6.1. Yards per attempt. During the regular season, 6.0. The Rams got 7.4. And then
now
even the yards
Stafford outdoors, who hasn't been good outdoors.
Stafford outdoors. And even the yards per carry. Kyron Williams in that Ram run game, 5.1 yards a carry, 4.3. So the defense, it's kind of showing us some red flags. Now, that's not the only red flag I'm seeing from the defense. That first meeting, Philadelphia handled Washington for the most part on that Thursday night game. Cliff wasn't moving Terry around. So Terry had 1 catch in that game. That second meeting, everyone wants to talk about, Philadelphia was on its way to a blowout until Jalen Hurts got hurt. Fine. But your defense still gave up 36 points. You still lost the game where you had a 5-2 turnover edge. So the defense showing some red flags here. And then even that first meeting, Washington was up 10-6 in the 4th quarter. And with McLaurin having 1 catch, finishing with 1 catch in that game, it wasn't until Philadelphia, busted out, some explosive plays. So I think that this Washington team can hang. I think Daniels is getting better. And I just think on both sides of the ball, we're seeing these red flags that they just keep adding up. So I keep having to ding 1/10 of a point here for Philadelphia's rating, 1/10 of a point there. And I'm just not getting to this, 6, this key number of 6 here. And Jaden Daniels as a dog, covering by 7.8 points per game in his 8 games as a dog, 5-2-1, 71.4% against the spread. Hurts is a favorite by 4 or more, 15-20, and with 2 pushes, just 43% against the spread. 6-12-1 over the past 2 seasons, just 33%. I just see too many red flags on both sides of the ball, and their kickers not hitting kicks now. And Philadelphia, one of the most conservative teams. Washington, one of the most aggressive. So everything kind of favors the dog in this matchup. If Hurts is less than 100% or AJ is still less than 100%, that's gravy. But I'm rolling with Washington here.
Yeah, I'm close to on market here. It looks like Quinyon Mitchell's going to play, but that's certainly worth monitoring. But you're right with the injury situation. I just don't like betting Washington games because look, people are like, because there's so much 4th down variance. I anticipate they're going to go for it a lot this week again. Last week it worked. They converted 3 4th downs. They also got 5 turnovers. They won the turnover battle against Tampa too. Had some key 4th downs. If the fourth down conversions go sideways. This could get ugly. If they work, they could win this game outright. There's just a lot of variance in Commanders game, so I'll probably look to bet this live, but you do have the potential injury uncertainty working in your favor. Although I will say the Cosme injury on Washington a bit underrated in this particular matchup against Jalen Carter. We'll see if the interior of that Philadelphia defensive line can get more pressure. But I'm going to go a different route for my first pick of the conference championship Sunday six pack. I'm going with Dallas Goedert over 3.5 catches. This is fine at minus 140. Fine minus 130 out there as we record. I also like him over his yardage, 37.5, 38.5. Anything below 40, I think is fine. I really like this matchup for Goddard. And I'll say this, I think the injury uncertainty helps Goddard because I don't think Jalen Hurts is the highest scramble rate
Mm-hmm.
in the NFL. So I don't think with his knee, he's going to be scrambling as much. Also, designed runs, doubt you're going to get those. Washington also likes to blitz. So Hurts, not as mobile, not going to be scrambling as much. Probably needs to get rid of the ball quicker. Who benefits from that? I think Goddard. I also don't think AJ Brown is 100% healthy. I mean, he has two
No,
catches in.
should have had a third, but yeah,
Yeah, and he
doesn't
dropped
look
it.
right.
And he had favorable matchups from a corner perspective against the Rams corners, against the Packers corners without Alexander. So I don't think he's fully healthy. I think that's more looks for Goddard. The Washington season-long defensive numbers against tight ends from a raw numbers perspective aren't terrible. 4 catches for 39 yards on average, but doesn't paint the whole picture. They faced, I don't know, 5 or 6 backup quarterbacks. They also didn't face Goddard in one of the matchups. They didn't face Trey McBride. They didn't face Jake Ferguson. Njoku gets hurt early for the Browns. If you adjust for opponent and not even those injuries, they're 26th in DVOA against tight ends. Also, bottom 3 in terms of defending over the middle of the field and at the second level. So there's going to be opportunities for Goddard here, just like was for Laporta last week. I mean, Laporta had 6 catches on 7 targets for 51 yards and a touchdown. Could have had more. If Goff wasn't a pumpkin, some of his picks, Laporta was wide open and he tried to force throws. I mean, Laporta should have had 8, 9 catches in that game. Since coming back from injury, Goddard's looked really good. His past 6 games, he's averaged 4 catches on 5 targets for 45.5 yards. He has 8 on 10 targets for 103 yards in the playoffs. And that includes a big screen pass that got called back to an illegal man downfield. Goddard has showed up in almost every single postseason game. Since his second year in the league, when he started a majority of the games in the season, he has played in 8 playoff games. He's averaged 5.1 catches on just under 7 targets for 54 yards and 3 touchdowns. Median receptions and yards over that stretch, 6 for 57. He's got at least 4 in all 8 games. Never gone below 4. He's got 47 yards or more in 6 of those 8. So I really like him to get at least 4 catches here. He's probably going to get 7 or 8 targets. If I had to guess, I think he'll get like a screen, a couple checkdowns, and he just has a favorable matchup here. Whether or not Washington elects to go more zone, which they could here, because if you look at Hurts' numbers, just like Goff, good practice run. That could help your bet too. Like you want to maybe use a little more zone here against Hurts. But I think just the Hurts and Brown not being 100%, Hurts mobility likely limited. I think that means more opportunities for Goddard in a favorable matchup. So give me his over 3.5 catches for my first pick.
Yeah, I do. I have Hurts projected to scramble less. We even saw that, last week against the Rams. I think the one concern is Philadelphia is never really that forthcoming with injuries. I mean, AJ Brown, he'll be off the injury report by the time the game rolls around, and he's clearly not 100%. But
Yeah.
I think the one downside is if they go with that super run heavy, play calling kind of scheme again that they went after Hurts' injury and feel like, okay, it's Washington. We can beat them if we just stay run heavy. Barkley will break one. There was what was it? The Green Bay game. Ertz was stuck on 39 passing yards with under 5 minutes to go in the third quarter. But I agree. I think Goedert does have a good matchup. But yeah, that would be my only concern. Would just be
Yeah, I mean, but this is the NFC Championship
run
game from a scouting perspective and a game planning perspective. If you're Washington, you have to say, like, this is how I pick some of my props in these high leverage games. You have to say we're not. Now, Barkley still might, but you have to say we're not letting Barkley beat us with Hertz limited, with Brown limited. Like, you have to stack the box here. You have to sell out against the run. Philly's still going to run it a ton with Barkley, but Hertz isn't going to run it. Like, there's going to be opportunities in play action, third downs, like that. I still think he's going to get looks, even if they go super run heavy. I mean, if you're Washington, you have to sell out here. There's no two ways about it. And I do think that Washington's offense will have success to, keep Philly from, like against Green Bay, they were able to jump out because of the turnover, and then Green Bay had all those injuries. So then last week you go super run heavy. I mean, it was the conditions were obviously not ideal for throwing the ball, and they had a lead and they almost blew it. But Barkley and snow is just an unfair advantage, and they leaned on that for sure. I think even if they go super run heavy, Goddard's still going to get his looks.
Yeah, he absolutely should. I mean, that's that's kind of what I would be planning for if I was Philly, because you want more high percentage looks too. Like, I'm surprised they don't throw to Barkley more. I know they just hand it to him, but I think they threw it to him 4 times last game, but usually he's getting like 2 catches. I would think they would try to increase that. But kind of sticking with the theme here, for my second pick in the third overall of the conference championship 6-pack, I'm going with Zach Ertz over 3.5 receptions. You can find this at -110, -115. I have this going over about just under 60% of the time. So Philadelphia has allowed 4 or more catches to a tight end in 10 times over its last 15 games, excluding week 18 when they rested starters. And look at their playoff games. Tyler Higbee, 7 catches with the Rams, and Kraft, 5 catches for the Packers. When you have these corners on the outside and you have Cooper DeJean in the slot, you're going to funnel the ball to other spots. And Zach Ertz is really Jaden Daniels' number 2 target anyway. I know Diami Brown is emerging, but I think it's a tougher matchup from him. He is good against man coverage, but still a tougher matchup especially if Mitchell plays. So I think that Zach Ertz is going to be a factor here. He's had 5 or more catches in 3 of the past 4. And he did have 6 in the first meeting against Philly, only 1 in the second one, but that was a game where he was questionable coming in with a concussion. And you actually do see a downtick in production from players that are questionable on the injury report with a concussion. So I'm not putting too much into that. I think that this is a spot where, Jaden Daniels is going to have to avoid some pressure. They're going to get pressure probably right up the middle. So I don't, and you're not going to ask Ertz to block. Like that's why you've seen John Bates in the game a ton in these playoff games, because he's the guy that's going to block if they need blockers. So like Ertz, he's gone over this in 11 of 19 overall on the season. Like him to do it once again against the Eagles. Revenge.
Yeah, I'm super curious to see how Daniels looks. I mean, everything he showed us is just super poised, super calm. But, I know the Washington defense is not any good. I don't like
it's not.
We know that. So like that's the worst unit in this game by far, which worries me. And I know people are like, "Oh, well, Daniels is different. That's why they're 4th down." Like, no, that's nonsense. They went 20 of 23 in the regular season on 4th downs. We've seen elite mobile quarterbacks. You're not going to convert 80 to 90% of your 4th downs over time. And it's not like these are 4th and 1 sneaks. So they're throwing it more often than running it on these 4th downs.
So I actually looked at that. So a lot of them are they're not sneaks, no, but a lot of them are like 4th and short, like 5 to go or less. So the key for Daniels really has been, and he hasn't been great at this all year, but he's been good at it lately. Is just avoiding sacks, and
Yep.
he seems to be getting like realizing that like if I could just avoid sacks, scramble for 1 yard, dump it off, whatever he has to do. They're getting into like it's almost like they're playing for fourth and short now, and that's just kind of changed their whole. Like it's like this team never punts. It's you're either gonna turn them over or their drive's gonna keep going at this point. So
Yeah,
like that's kind of what I've seen out of Daniels.
yeah, but there's still just some regression like coming. Now it doesn't have to. It's one game. It doesn't they could go 6 for 6 in this game. I just worry about the game that they go 0 for 3, 0 for 4, because we have to remember this offense was trending down towards the end of the regular season, and they get a couple breaks in the Tampa game. Tampa has a couple defensive injuries. Then last week, you get 5 turnovers, and Detroit loses more starters. I mean, you're down to Kendall Vildor, and that defense was already ravaged. I mean, you're down what half of your two deep. So against an elite Philadelphia defense, if they get behind um, on the road, I worry a bit about Washington.
I mean, but you're
But I'm
getting the
not
six
running.
here. I mean, if like
I'm not
think
running the
about it the
window to
other way
fade him.
though,
I'm
what
just
if Philly gets behind with their 39 yards passing for 3 quarters? Like, you know what I mean?
yeah, but
Like,
I also think that like you have that first game back with Hertz and all that rust. I mean, and he was coming off the concussion.
then
Give
he
him
got
a
hurt
semi
again
pass
at the
there.
end.
And
That's
last week you had the conditions that weren't ideal for throwing the ball. But I also think Barkley, I mean, the Washington run D is bad too. I
oh
mean,
no, Barkley's getting his. But that's the
Barkley
thing.
should be able to run all
It's
over
like
them.
look at it. Like all right, in the Green Bay game, Philadelphia gets that gift opening possession. What is it, fumble, right? It was get like a 20-yard touchdown drive. Rest of that game, as bad as Green Bay played, all those injuries, 15-10 rest of the game.
Yeah.
Like that's Philadelphia's margin. In this Rams game, Barkley bust off 2 long touchdown runs. Hurts bust off another, and if Matt like the Rams could have won that game. Now I know there was some other lucky things that the Rams got benefited from, but like missed kicks and whatnot. But the point is, Philadelphia's margins are shrinking. I just feel like it like we've seen all the red flags, and the one thing about Washington is say what you want, but take the offense out of it for Philly. They put up 36 points on this Philly defense. That's still the most anyone's put up this year.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I just but my gut has some concerns, but I'm not running the bet. I'm right on market. The other thing to keep in mind with Hertz's knee is do they now one of their biggest advantages is their 4th and 1s, is
Yep.
their goal line. Does that become a little less effective? Are they more hesitant to do that? Which could, cost them points ultimately. So, yeah, nothing for me on the side or total, but I'll be obviously it's just one game at a time. So just like last week, I'll be watching closely, follow along the action app, see if I've bet anything live. But looking forward to that one as the appetizer to the entree.
Yeah, and I'll have another bet on this game for our long shots. So we'll table that and we'll get into the Bills at the Chiefs. Chiefs favored by 1.5. The total 47.5. 6:30 Eastern on CBS. Stuck. Why don't you go up first in this one?
Yeah, I like my initial thoughts on the game are that I'm concerned, much to the chagrin of our producer. I'm a little concerned for the Bills. I mean, obviously you have Patrick Mahomes, who he's won 20 straight home games in cold temperatures in November or later. He's 7-0. 7-0, I think, against the spread and straight up in the playoffs as a underdog or favorite of less than a field goal, covering by about 6 points per game. It's, Mahomes at home in the playoffs, and you just need him to win by a field goal. It's that old adage. But this Bills team is the turnover regression monster going to hit? I mean, they've been so fortunate in that department. And but the biggest thing that I'm worried about is they do have some defensive injuries. We'll see how that plays out
Benford,
with
Rapp, and Milano.
Benford,
Question.
Rapp, Milano, even Teron Johnson got a little banged up. I expect him to play, but Benford concussion We'll see. Um, so yeah, Rap, he's probably the least likely to play, but we'll see. I, my biggest concern I have for the Bills is their defense over the middle of the field, and that could end up being a death sentence against the Chiefs. And that's where they're going to attack. I don't. It's not like this Bills pass rush is dominant like the Texans, because the biggest issue for the Chiefs is their offensive line. So, and then they kicked Tooney out, which hurt their run game. So their rush efficiency has gone down because he's not at guard anymore. And they're still weak. He's not great still in pass protection. So, but you went against the Texans, who have Hunter and Anderson. The Bills don't have that. So can they wreck the game as well as much as the Texans defense did? I don't know. I do know that the Bills, so I know that the Chiefs are going to attack them over the middle of the field. They're going to spam Kelsey. I mean, I know that. And he's going to have he's going 14 straight playoff games with at least 5 catches and 70 yards, which is just insane. NFL records for both. But that's what would concern me. Like if Cole Bishop starting back there, DeMar Hamlin, their linebackers haven't been as great in coverage, and you don't win the turnover battle, which you're probably not likely to do against Kansas City in the playoffs, then it might be trouble. But I do think that this Kansas City team is obviously extremely vulnerable. I do think their defense is so overrated. I'll say that again this week. They played nobody all year. Everyone, and what I mean by nobody is everyone they played since the Ravens game, when the Ravens put up 450 yards, everyone had missing pieces, like offensive linemen, quarterbacks, wide receivers hurt. Like they benefited so much, especially opposing offensive lines being hurt. And we saw this Texans offense that couldn't do a thing all year. The Texans carved them up twice, once before Dell went down, and then last week the Texans offense was better than the Chiefs offense. Stroud was better than Mahomes last week. And who was he throwing to? I mean, a bunch of guys off the street. So I do think that their defense is vulnerable, even against the run. I think their run defense is better than it has been, but I think their secondary is overrated. Now, is it good? Yes. Is Spags great? Yes. Is he going to draw up pressures here? Yes. But the Bills' offensive line is better than the Texans' offensive line. And Allen is better at evading sacks than Stroud. He's going to
Yeah,
use his legs here.
that's big.
Um, but you have to unleash Allen, and you have to be aggressive here, because I think to beat this Chiefs team, you got to jump on them and you got to kill them, because you can't be up 3 or 4 in the fourth quarter with 2.5 minutes to go, and you can't defend over the middle of the field, and you give Mahomes 4 downs. What's going to happen? They're going to complete 10 6-yard passes to go 60 yards and score a touchdown on a tight end pitch to Kelsey. And then they're going to pan to Taylor Swift, and the Chiefs are going back to the Super Bowl. So that would be my concern. I have nothing on the side. I'll probably look to bet this live. If anything, I might tease the Bills and the Eagles, maybe, if you were looking to just for action. I would bet the Bills at 3. I'll tell you that. I don't know where this line is headed. There's been some sharp money in some groups that have bet the Chiefs. Can't blame anybody. I'm not betting the Bills. I'm not fading Mahomes at +2. I have this around a coin flip. So if I get 3, where I can buy to like a cheaper, semi not too expensive 3, I'll be on the Bills there. But nothing much. I actually lean over, believe it or
Yeah,
not,
same.
because I think the Chiefs defense is overrated, and I don't think that the Bills, especially with their injuries on defense, and they're second worst in the league at defending the middle of the field. Washington's third worst. The worst was Carolina. Like that's the company both of those defenses are in, defending the middle of the field. So I think Kansas City will be able to move the ball. I think they go pass happy. You have 2 quarterbacks who are good at evading sacks. I don't think the Bills' defensive line is going to completely wreak havoc on the game. They're not going to blitz much. So I think Mahomes will be able to move the ball. And then I think the Chiefs' defense is overrated across the board. So I think the Bills are going to be able to move the ball. And so I would actually, especially if I can get 40. What's it at now? 47 and a half still?
Yeah, 47.5. Also, to all of our listeners, listen up. If you're watching or listening on your phone and you want to instantly tail any of today's picks, just go to the episode description. We've got links for all those picks. If you click the links on your mobile device, the betting app for that pick will open with the bet slip for that pick. Very convenient and a great way to tail. So just go to the episode description and find the quick slip links and you can tail instantly.
I'm going to focus on props for my pick. So for my second pick and the fourth overall of the championship Sunday six pack, I'm going to go with Xavier Worthy over 2.5 rushing yards. 3.5's out there, fine as well. This was 4.5 last week, and he ran for one carry for -8 yards. Now we're getting 2.5. Which I think holds a ton of value. So if you go back, so if he gets a carry here, then he's more than likely to go over 2.5 rushing yards. He averaged 5 yards per carry during the regular season. In 16 games in the regular season, he had 20 carries for 104 yards, average of about 5.2 yards per rush. And he had one for 7 yards against Buffalo back in mid-November. And this is a Bills defense that will give up explosive runs. So there's like a chance that Worthy breaks one off here. So will there be alts on his rushing yards over by the time game kicks?
There might be, there might not. There could be just because it's the championship. Typically there
Yeah.
wouldn't be, but there might be just because it is because it's such a big game.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate an alt overlook too on his rushing yards. But am I confident that Worthy will get a rushing attempt? Yes. I don't know. I would put it at my confidence level, and I'm not a prop expert. I would say I'm like 80% confident that he gets a carry in this game. So if you go back in, and by the way, the spread is 1.5 too. So the likelihood of the Chiefs running away with this and being able to just, hey, we're gonna hand it off and bleed the clock out and go super conservative is uh, less likely than some other games. Even if you go back to the Miami game last year or even the Texans game when they did have a comfortable lead at the end. But if you go back, reads prior to this season, Kansas City has played in 20 playoff games since 2016. So that spans the Mahomes era and a couple Alex Smith games. A pass catcher has ran the ball in 19 of those games, including 18 straight. The last time the Chiefs didn't give a carry to a non-running back or quarterback was in the 2018 AFC Championship game against the Patriots. Worthy is easily your most likely candidate to get the almost inevitable carry. If we look at raw totals, those pass catchers had 34 rushing attempts across those 20 games for 241 yards, single game average of 1.7 attempts for a little over 12 yards. In total, 19 pass catchers in 20 games have ran for at least 3 yards. And at least just one person has done it in 16 of the 20. So I think there's a decent chance he breaks one off. I think there's a really good chance that he gets a carry. And I wouldn't be shocked if he gets more than one carry, which a pass catcher has done in 7 of those 20 games. Tyreek Hill got 3 carries in a handful of games. And Kansas City's attempted more than one rush with a pass catcher in over half of those playoff games. 11 of the 20, a pass catcher's had 2. So in total, they've had 2 or more non-traditional rushing attempts. So, yeah, I think there's a good chance he gets this. I think we're getting a discounted number after last week because he got stuffed. Texans did a really good job of sniffing out his run for a loss of 8 yards. So, yeah, I think anything up to 3.5 is good here. And there's a good chance. Because, look, the other thing is, and Hardman's not going to be in the mix. He has a lot of these carries in these games over the years. And the Chiefs do this every year. They're concentrating who they get the ball to,
Yep.
right? And clearly, Worthy is one of those guys that they want to get the ball into his hands in as many ways as possible. So give me Worthy over 2.5 rushing yards.
Yeah, so he's averaging about 1.2 carries a game. That doesn't mean he has a carry in every game, but that would work out to about a 70% chance that he gets at least one carry. And that number has gone up. So like if you kind of weight it for recency and you say, okay, his true projection is closer to 1.5, then it's like 80% chance he gets a carry. And
So I'm not too far off with my 80%.
yeah. And then 15 of his 21 carries have gone for at least 3. 14 of his 21 have gone for at least 4. So yeah, I think the odds are in your favor. I think I have to bet this too, actually. Now that I look at this. Yeah, this is I like this. Want to make extra money daily from your sports betting? You know I'm always about finding ways to take sports betting to the next level, and that's why I'm excited to tell you about Edgeboost, the financial platform that pays you cash back to wager. Edgeboost is an online bank account that pays you for every deposit. With Edgeboost Visa debit card, you're getting up to 0.5% cash back on all of your sportsbook, daily fantasy site, and casino transactions. That's free money back in your pocket just for doing what you're already doing. It's a no-brainer. Plus, your Edgeboost debit card starts with a $250,000 daily limit and will never be declined for gambling activity. They've got built-in tools to help you stay responsible, and there's absolutely no hidden fees or minimum required balances. So stop leaving money on the table. Visit Edgeboost.bet to learn more and sign up today. That's Edgeboost.bet. So you want me to go with my next, or you want to just go with your last one and then I'll close it out?
Yeah, I'll throw out my next one. So my final pick of the Sunday six pack is going to be Noah Gray over 13.5 receiving yards. I also like over 1.5 catches. I split them up. I'll go with receiving yards for this. So look, do I want to? Kelsey's obviously, I just mentioned, he has 14 straight games of at least five catches, at least 70 yards. I know Kerner. I know just from me looking at it, my back of the envelope projections, I show value on his under. Am I going to bet Travis Kelce under in the playoffs against a team that can't defend the middle of the field with some injuries in the back end? Absolutely not. But I think I can indirectly fade him with Noah Gray. So the Bills definitely are going to game plan for Travis Kelce. Now that other teams have too, it doesn't slow him down. But all eyes are going to be on Kelce here, especially after last week. So I think that might open up a couple of wide open opportunities for Noah Gray. That's what happened in the first meeting. Kelce only had 2 catches on 4 targets, I think for 8 yards, and Noah Gray had 4 catches and 2 touchdowns in that game. So I think this number is just deflated because Kelce's number is inflated. I think there's just like a little relationship there. So I think this number is just too low because I think the Chiefs are going to incessantly attack over the middle of the field, where Buffalo is a bottom 3 defense and now has some potential injuries. I mean, they're just safeties can't cover. Their linebackers have some issues in that department. I do think the Chiefs go pass heavy, and I think they attack the middle of the field. In his past 5 postseason games, Gray has 11 catches on 14 targets for 79 yards, averaging about 2.2 catches for just under 16 yards. He's cleared his yardage mark and his catch mark in 4 of his past 5 playoff games. And like I said, small spread. This is likely to be a competitive game throughout. I think that he's just going to find some holes in the zone, and they're going to get him a couple catches, and there's a chance that he's wide open down the field a couple of times when Mahomes is buying time. So yeah, I think that there's some value in this number for Gray, similar to why I liked. Like, I'm not changing anything from last week. I wanted to attack Washington's coverage against the tight end zone with Laporta, and then I wanted to attack the Bills' middle of the field with Likely, and going to do it again here with the Chiefs' second tight end in Noah Gray, who I think will get enough snaps. I mean, I think he'll run like in a game like this, and I kind of like the over too, which is another reason I like this over. I don't know. I think he'll run at least 15 routes in the game.
Yeah, he's getting about 45%, a little bit down from his peak, before they got their ideal receiving trio. healthy, but yeah, he's about 45. So you figure usually you get 40 dropbacks plus out of the Chiefs. So yeah,
Yeah, but
like
I also think that this
16
is
plus.
16 plus, you're saying?
Yeah, 40
The
times about
Bills have
40. Yeah.
also really, really struggled defending the pass out of heavy formations. So I think that this is a, if you're just going based off of the data, this is a game where you might see the Chiefs up their 12 personnel. So you might see more two tight ends on the field, which the Bills have really struggled to defend the pass. So I wouldn't be surprised if you got closer to 20.
Yeah. So before I get into my final pick, curious as to your thoughts on how the Benford injury might affect things. I mean, he might go, but cornerback really playing really well. But my thought, one thing I really did like that the Bills did last week, Babbage kind of in-game adjusted where I think they played their normal like zone, didn't really blitz much, and Lamar carved them up. So they started playing man and blitzing. So I just wonder, okay, we know they're weak in the middle of the field. We know the Chiefs, I don't think they completed a pass to an outside receiver last week. It was all
No.
Kelsey, Gray, and Worthy who's
Hopkins
played
and
most
Brown
of the
had
slot.
zero catches.
Right. Yeah, Hopkins and Brown, zero catch. Exactly. So I just wonder because Babbage has impressed me lately. I just wonder, do you think there's anything he like could could he just kind of like play like almost like a robber or a spy type guy in the middle of the field and just dare Hopkins and Brown to beat him one on one with the Chiefs tackle situation? Or do you think that Benford being like if Benford was out, would that kind of just like axe that idea completely anyway?
Well, no, because without Benford, I mean, Benford's like an ideal zone corner,
Mm-hmm.
and he's really good at it.
So you're thinking if Benford is out, they're more likely to just kind of mug in the middle of the field and dare the outside guys to beat him with Elam and who is it? Douglas on the who's on the other
Yeah, I
side?
don't know. It's a good question because then you might just say let's play it even more conservative and Ben don't break. But Elam is a guy that in my opinion, is a better man corner than a zone corner. I mean, that's what he played that's what he was known for in college. So I don't know, but like your backup's in there, so you might say, and your best corner's not in there, so you might say let's play, and you might have another safety injury. So I could see it going either way. Like let's just make them march the field and play even more conservative, or screw it. We can't defend in the middle field. We have these injuries. Let's just be aggressive, make them throw to their wide receivers. So it's a good question. I don't know the answer, to be honest.
Because I mean, the most important receiver is Worthy in the slot, and that would be Johnson anyway. So it's like you could, you're essentially you want to commit resources to the middle regardless. So yeah, I'm trying to think of because these playoffs, certain teams are willing to kind of go against tendency, and the Bills have shown they are. I thought that was one of the most fascinating matchups, heading into last week. So yeah, that is on my radar though. I could see them just saying your tackles aren't going to hold up. We dare you to just target Hopkins and Brown outside against Douglas and I guess Elam. So yeah, that is something I'd be on the lookout for. But either way, I mean, I don't think it hurts Gray as much because you'd still be, Kelsey, Worthy in that order, and then Gray would be your third most, like you don't really care about Gray. Like that's
Yeah.
you can't
And they're
prioritize.
probably going to just I just with all the attention on Kelsey, worthy in motion, there's probably just going to be a couple plays, and there's probably going to be a couple plays non-scramble wise. I mean, scramble wise, where Gray gets lost in the mix, but they're probably going to scheme up a play or two where, with all the attention on everyone else, that Gray kind of gets lost um, open. But I do think that's if Benford doesn't play, that is like the thing I'll be watching the most early on is how Buffalo plays it because that will also play into a live total because if they are playing it super aggressive and playing man, then you're going to see more Chiefs explosive plays. and then I would really like
Maybe,
an over.
maybe,
Um,
maybe.
I mean, more at least shots. So like
Yeah,
then you
yeah.
might go through, you might punt it instead of them, going on a 9-minute scoring drive, which because I think both teams will move the ball, but it's like pulling your hair out when you have an over 47 and the Chiefs go on a 10-minute scoring drive, and then they get stopped at like the 6 and kick a field goal, and then you're like, God. So I think if they play it aggressive, you'll at least get a lot, a handful more shots down the field. But what are you seeing in the game before you get to your last pick?
Yeah, so I think the keys, and you touched on it, but I think the big key for me, and nothing, I make this about Chiefs just a little over -1. But I think the Bills have an advantage here that could win them the game, and it's the fact that Josh Allen just hasn't been getting sacked. And if you because you mentioned it against Houston, Kansas City allowed 10 of 17 on third down. They allowed Stroud to be pretty efficient throwing the ball. It was just he got sacked 8 times, 36.4% of pressures. They pressured him 22 times. 8 of those 22 times, 36%, he got sacked, right? Now, Josh Allen, historically good in terms of avoiding sacks this year. Regular season, 8% of his pressures turn into sacks. That was first in the league. Stroud was at 22%, 32nd out of 44 qualifiers. Include the postseason, and Allen's 8.7%. So you go from 36% to like 8-9%. That's a 4x difference. If you go from like 8 sacks to 1 or 2, and then what's going to happen? Allen's scrambling. That's what happened in the first matchup. They pressured him 19 times. He got the ball off 14 times and completed 9 for 99 yards, touchdown and a pick. Not bad under pressure, all things considered. But he also scrambled 5 times. If that's your only defense, how are you stopping Buffalo at this point? Because like you said, the run defense a little bit overrated. When the ball actually gets released, they're good, and Spags will have some tricks up his sleeve, but it's not like they're amazing. And that Houston proved it last week. I mean, Houston with one receiver, everyone really knew where it was going, and they really didn't use Schultz enough, and they still, were efficient passing the ball. So that's the thing that I think Kansas City gets beat by. For Buffalo, I think the way they get beat, you mentioned it, like the turnover aggression, right? What has Buffalo been trying to do all year? Spread the ball around. So this is the type of game where, okay, you're letting, your rookie backup running back touch the ball around the goal line. You're letting your third down back, get 7-8 touches a game these days in Ty Johnson. You're letting, Curtis Samuel, Matt Howens, Amari Cooper, who's been getting no run, so he's rusty. I mean, how many times has he had the ball in his hands in the past month? Like all these guys, does one of those guys fumble or something, in a key moment? That's it for Buffalo. But for Kansas City, I mean, if they don't get sacks, I mean, Buffalo might not be super efficient, but I think with Josh Allen scrambling, they have enough. So that's kind of what I'm looking
Yeah, I
at.
mean, Allen could certainly win this game on his own. You have to kill shot the Chiefs, and I do worry about just like Allen is due for like a turnover. The Chiefs are due to not. I mean, the Bills are due not to finally win the turnover battle. But you talked me out of this one because the number is super high. But I almost went. I might still bet this Allen over 9.5 rushing attempts because I think he's going to scramble a bunch. I think there's going to be some design runs. This is an all-out game. This is basically as close to a Super Bowl as you can get to a Super Bowl. Design runs, bunch of scrambles. I think for all the third and ones, fourth and ones near the goal lines, he's running it. Obviously, you could have QB kneels as well. But if you look back, the past 5 meetings against the Chiefs, because I thought this number was pretty high too. So this year, 12 for 55. Last year in the playoffs, 12 for 72. In the regular season, 10 for 32. 2022, he was 12 for 32. 2021 in the playoffs, 11 for 68. In the regular season, 11 for 59. So what's that? 5 straight games. He's had at least 11 carries against the Chiefs. I think you have to unleash his legs. Design runs,
Yeah.
obviously all the short yardage. If they win, I think this goes over this clearly. If he's kneeling it at the end, um, but
Yeah,
I
mean, it's an
run it as
inflated
much as
number. Like
possible. Yeah,
it's
it's
the
just
market
from
should
like a
have, if the
pure
market was giving us eight
median.
and a half, I think it would be a lot better. But like they know, like there's still a lot of variance. So essentially, like for example, last week, no
I
scrambles.
get it. Everyone wants to bet the Russian quarterbacks. Like who's
Yeah,
like so they're all
yeah.
inflated. But
And so really what it comes down to is, last week no scrambles but 8 design runs. Uh, but he's, 8 design like non-kneel runs. But a lot of that variance also comes down to, is he getting stopped or not? Like, like let's say you're in second and goal. Does he run it in or does he get stopped and go do it again on third and goal? Like it's just a lot of variance. And then you're with the kneel downs that it's not like,
yeah,
at least compared
I
to
could
your
just
other
see
two
his
bets, it wasn't
scrambles.
as a
I could just
value
see
like
like
that.
6 or 7 scrambles, couple design runs, because the Chiefs are going to blitz and they're going to bring pressure, and then Allen's going to take off. But yeah, obviously I understand it's probably an inflated number, but it's pretty crazy. He's had 11 more in 5 straight meetings with the
Yeah,
Chiefs.
no, it is. No, it's. I mean, he probably gets there, but just from a value perspective, maybe if they give like an alt, maybe just try to get like an 11 or 12 or something to get a little extra juice on it.
So he's
But
guaranteed to finish with 10 now. But where
yeah,
are you going for your
right.
final pick?
All right, so for my third pick, the sixth overall of the conference championship 6 pack, I'm going Isaiah Pacheco under 11 and a half for his longest rush. And uh, this is one I really like because I think the market for weeks now has been overestimating the amount of volume that Pacheco is going to get. But at the same time, I think the Chiefs have started to go away from him a little bit more. We saw him only get 5 carries in that game against Houston. And generally, he'll get some carries, first and 10 early in the game. And that's why the books keep putting him up at, 9, 10 carries. But in the second half, the Chiefs have just gone away from him and gone toward Kareem Hunt. And I see why, because Hunt doesn't need Tooney at left guard as much, I think, as Pacheco does. And the numbers kind of bear that out. So since Tooney moved to left tackle, Pacheco just 33 carries for 94 yards, 2.8 yards per carry, a long of 10. But when Tooney was at guard, 4.3 yards per carry on a long of 34 on 55 carries. So night and day for Pacheco. He also doesn't look as explosive. He's been under 11 and a half for his longest rush in 7 of 8 games. He's been under 10 and a half in 6 of his 8 games. Only one of his 88 carries this season has gone for more than 11 yards, and only 2 of his 88 carries this year have gone for longer than 10 yards. So, Buffalo, not the greatest run defense, but Pacheco's really struggling. He's not seeing the field well. And the way Hunt's running, there's also a possibility that they start going away from Pacheco more earlier than they have in the past. And the thing about Pacheco when it comes to these longest run props is that the defense kind of knows what's up when he's in the game because he's usually not playing on third downs. And so he doesn't get those, okay, lined up in shotgun. It's like second and long or third and long or whatever, passing down type situation where you can just break off a long one because the defense is playing the pass. He doesn't really get those opportunities because you have Hunt and you have P. Ryan taking up most of those kind of snaps. So really like this Pacheco under 11 and a half longest rush. I show value at 10 and a half as well, but 11 and a half, this is like a 60% hit plus for me projected. And that's even if I bump his carries up because I'm a carry below the market. I'm at 7.5. The market's at 8.5. Even if I do it at 8.5, still about 60% to the under at 11.5. So give me Pacheco under 11.5 longest rush.
Yeah, my only pushback, I get to play devil's advocate, because I like the thought process of fading Pacheco because his, as you alluded to, his efficiency is plummeted, and over the past month or so, not sure if he's fully healthy. Part of that might be Tooney, as you said, but the Bills will like stuff runs at an above average rate, but they also give up a lot of explosive runs. So that would be my only fear. Like, why not fade him more in the efficiency market. So like carries or total yards. Like I was looking at total rushing plus receiving yards under 44, 45-ish. Because I don't think he's going to get as many looks. He's not as efficient. But my fear is that the Bills do give up an above average rate of like 10 plus yard runs. So my fear is he just breaks one.
So
Um, that's my
in
only pushback. As
so in
someone who's
these kind
not,
of markets, like that's kind of like from a mathematical standpoint, like let's say it's all about the carry volume and the efficiency. So like yes, it might feel more comfortable to fade his yardage or his carries. And I
yeah,
might
no, I
fade
get the math, but what about this
but
specific matchup? Like, because the
yeah, no,
Bills
I
pay
mean,
their stuff
so
runs or give up a big one is like how they kind of profile.
yeah, but you can like so yeah, that there's just not as much predictivity in that specific. Like there's a little bit like, but there's not as much in just the overall efficiency. So like yes, whatever Buffalo's like efficiency adjustment is, matchup wise, like it does add a little bit to Pacheco's like yards per carry or whatever. And but that goes into calculating his long. And that's like I have Pacheco at if I give him like 9 carries at 4.1. I have him at 4.1, and that's because Buffalo can give up some explosives, and like he's still going under this. Like that's
Yeah.
and like really he's averaging 2.8 in the last 4 games since Tooney moved to left tackle. But you're never gonna model quite that low.
Yeah.
Like
No,
running,
that's good insight.
yeah. So
Because you're
like oh yeah,
modeling these, you're
he's
modeling these. That just that kind of shows a little behind the curtain of how the math works. When I'm betting my props, it's more, and I only bet props in playoffs. I'm just looking more subjectives, but that makes sense from a math standpoint.
Yeah, there's a formula actually. I mean, it's probably too complicated for people to get, but like it's essentially you just find the like you take his projected like you can do this for any like completions, whatever. Just take the projected attempts and the projected efficiency, and then you just have you put it you one over it for the efficiency, and then you're essentially taking the exp, which if you were using a spreadsheet, like you would put the exp formula in, and you would take the negative of that times the negative of the carry of the attempts times the one over
Yeah,
efficiency.
you've
It
lost,
sounds
you've lost
complicated, but
everybody.
yeah, it's a whole thing. Anyway, Pacheco under 11.5, love it. You got 2 bets on this one. You got the Worthy over 2.5 rush yards, Noah Gray over 13.5 receiving. So what's your order for? And then you have Goedert over 3.5 receptions from
Yeah,
the
I'm gonna go
Commanders game.
Goddard,
Yeah,
Worthy, and then Gray. And how about you?
I'll go Pacheco under, the Ertz over is my top 2. So we do 2 points for our top 2 and a point for our third, and I'll go Commanders plus 6.5 for my third. Now it's time for our money line parlay. All right, Stuck. So yeah, you had a nice hit on the last play with Isaiah Likely anytime touchdown at 4-1. Came up just short with Worthy, but you're gonna go back to the well essentially this week with
Yeah, I'm going Worthy anytime
Lex.
touchdown. I think they want to get him looks. Run game, pass game. It's gonna have opportunities 2-1. I
Yep.
think it's a good number.
Yep. Yeah. The run game is crucial too, because he's getting his rushing scores this year are from 3, and then I think 2 from 21 yards out each. So he's getting those attempts, where it matters too.
Yep.
So that's another thing about his rush attempts. And that tends to be more predictive, like sticky, like when a non-running back gets rushing touchdowns and rushing red zone carries. That tends to, be less variance than if it's just any random running back. So like Worthy as well.
Yeah, I'm going to have this too. And just in case his one carry is 2 yards for a touchdown from the 2, and at least I'll have that to cover the over 2.5 yards.
There you go. And then I'm going to go. So I got an interesting one. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, but I'm going to go with the Eagles to have more punts than the Commanders at plus 265. Now,
I like that.
Washington in just entire year, about half the time they've had fewer punts than their opponents. In the postseason, they punted once. Their opponents have punted 3 times. But Philadelphia has punted 9 times in this postseason, and their opponents have punted only 7 times. And Philadelphia's won both of their games. So they had a 5. They punted 3 more times than Green Bay, despite winning 22-10. And then last week, the Rams only punted once more than them. So my thinking is Washington's going to go for it almost any chance they get. But Philadelphia plays the exact opposite way. They play conservative. They're just going to rely on their defense. They're going to trust their run game and their defense. And if Philadelphia gets up, like let's say, they break up a couple of long runs, they're probably more likely to punt because they're going to play conservative. But if they get down, they're also not that much less likely to punt because they're conservative. So I think both game scripts could kind of lend itself to this one. And that second meeting, the 36-33 Washington comeback, Eagles 4 punts, Commanders only 2.
I like it. Yeah, maybe Hurts you're less likely to be a little more aggressive with the tush push, like on your own side of the field or something with the Hurts injury. Yeah, and I could see them being up late, couple punts. Washington drives the field, goes for it on 4th down, doesn't get it. Washington Eagles punt back to them. Washington drives the field, goes for it on 4th down again. Like you could pick up a couple late too, when Washington's not. So I like it. I think there's good value there.
All right. So if you parlay those two together, you get plus 995, Worthy plus 200 anytime touchdown, and Eagles to record more punts at plus 265. That's going to wrap it up for us. Thank you for listening. You can hear more of me every week with my guy, Sean Kerner, talking fantasy DFS player projections and touchdowns. On the Fantasy Flex podcast, we'll have the touchdown special dropping this Thursday. And Stuckey, you can hear him talking college hoops over on the Big Bets on Campus podcast. Stuck is on X at Stuckey2. I'm at Chris Raybon. We're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Enjoy the conference championships, and let's get this money.
Let go.